And now, Move the Sticks with Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks.
What's up, everybody? Welcome inside Lucas Oil Stadium, the National Football League. Scouting Combine is upon us here in Indianapolis. Daniel Jeremiah joined by Bucky Brooks, and Move the Sticks is on the road. Buck, I think this means we were finally a legitimate program. We're a traveling program.
That's right, we're traveling. We're on the road. It's first time here, first time on the road doing a podcast, and what a better place, the Combine. This is what I think serves as the convention for all things pro football. All the coaches, all the general managers, all the scouts, all our buddies are here talking about players and other things that are taking place in the National Football
League. Yeah, not
League.
to mention, I believe over 1,100 media
Crazy,
to cover the Combine. I remember back in the day, Buck, you would walk through the hallways and maybe see one or two media members, and that was it. This has turned into a big, big ordeal, and we're going to have fans in the stands this year for the workouts, more so than we've had in the past. So there's a lot of buzz and a lot of energy here surrounding the Scouting Combine.
A lot of energy, and I think it's all been for the positive. Since we started broadcasting the Combine on NFL Network, we've seen participation go up. Since you have more media members here, you feel that players feel like this is an opportunity for them to show the world that they're worthy of being one of the top players. And so it also brings some pressure because the top guys, the guys who are deemed as the leaders, feel like they need to perform. If they don't, they kind of see their spot open up and someone else can slide in and kind of be the star of the Combine.
All right, well, let's let everybody at home know what we have coming up on the show today. We're going to cover a lot of ground. We're going to look at some drills position by position, what we deem are the important things you need to be watching for at this year's Combine. Then we're going to give you something that's a little bit overrated. Just throw this out. Don't let this bother you and you're trying to evaluate these players from your couch. And then we're going to also go through and look at some of the premier players we have in this draft class, just a handful. And we're going to look at 5 breakout players that we see kind of really making a name for themselves here on this field this week.
Yeah, a lot of people will have an opportunity to really help themselves in terms of their draft stock. It's the first time that coaches have seen some of these guys. So that first impression can go a long ways when we go back and start talking about people in those draft meetings.
All right, well, let's jump right in here, Buck, and let's look at first the quarterback position and a couple things we would like to keep an eye on as scouts, and maybe as you're sitting there at home watching on television, some things you can keep an eye on. How about first up on the list there to watch for?
You know, the first thing I think you have to look for is so many of these guys are in shotgun. We want to see their feet. We want to see if they can take normal drops from under center, how quickly they transition. Can they set up with balance and body control to deliver accurate throws on the perimeter? When I'm looking at these drills, I pay a lot of attention to how balanced are they at their throwing platforms? Does the ball come out with zip and velocity? A lot of that is generated by the lower body incorporation to torque. I need to see good footwork from my quarterbacks because that leads me to believe that they're going to be accurate passers at the next level.
How many times have you seen, Buck, where you've got an ultra-athletic quarterback? He's run spread option in college, so you think he's really athletic. You get out here and you realize how slow their feet are when they're taking a drop because they just simply don't have that experience. That's one of the things you definitely focus on here at the Combine. I'll give you one that's going to take place before they get on the field, and that's when they measure their hand. We get the hand size for the quarterback position, and there's some teams that this is one of the biggest deals you'll ever see at the quarterback position. If your hand's not over 9 inches, that's a non-starter for some of these teams. We have a quarterback in this year's draft class who I really like in Brandon Allen from Arkansas at the Senior Bowl, 8.5, I believe, somewhere around there where his hand size. I've heard he's actually getting massages now on his hands, trying to make his hand size a little bit bigger to make it a little more acceptable to teams. But explain to people at home why it is you want a quarterback with big hands.
Well, you spent a long time in Baltimore and even in Philadelphia where you have inclement weather. So it's important that your quarterback has a ability to grip the ball so he can throw in those windy, those inclement conditions. Looking at their hand size is a way to kind of get a determining factor if they can grab the ball, if they can hold onto the ball, if they can do it. Russell Wilson, for me, is like really
huge
the testament.
Hands.
Big hands. You see how he performs. You see how he has good ball security. A lot of that is because his hands swallow up the ball, makes it easy for him to hold on to it when he's running, but also to throw spirals when he has to play in bad weather.
All right, how about overrated? What's an overrated aspect of the quarterback workout? Everything we're going to see on this field, maybe this is an aspect, say, okay, don't worry so much about this.
Accuracy and completions. Count the number of completions that they have throughout the course of the drills. Being able to go 17 for 21 in those drills, it doesn't really matter because we all know that these quarterbacks aren't throwing to receivers that they're used to working with. There's not a lot of chemistry and continuity when they're throwing the ball to the outside. So by focusing on their footwork and just the way the ball comes out their hand, that's a better determining factor than, oh, little Johnny threw 19 passes, completed 17 of those, that means he's going to be a really good pro. No, it's better to see what do the fundamentals look like. So that's going to give you the long-range view of what they play like.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of great quarterbacks sprayed around out here because the depth of the wide receivers, they're not familiar with the timing, all that stuff you mentioned. I remember Cam Newton spraying. I believe one got into the stands out here. It didn't affect him too much, went number one, and the rest is history. All right, let's move on to the running back position here, Buck. During the running back workout, I know we want to see how quick these guys are, but catching the football is a big deal.
Catching the football is huge. Most of these offenses like to have a running back that can catch the ball out the backfield, they can run routes. And in a lot of these systems, spread offense and some of the other traditional systems, we don't get a chance to see the tailbacks touch the ball in the passing game. So when I'm looking at drills, how well do they run routes? How natural are they when it comes to catching the ball? Do they catch it with their hands? Are they body catchers? You would like to have guys that can be three-down backs, particularly if you're going to invest a high pick in those. How naturally they catch the ball is a huge factor in that evaluation.
Yeah, you might have a guy maybe has 12, 14 catches during the year, so you don't really have a great feel, just some screens and a couple checkdowns. How does this guy run a wheel route? How can you get him on some angle routes over the middle? Can he drop his weight, get in and out of his breaks, and can he naturally pluck the football? Definitely something we'll be looking for here at the workout. And also the bag drills, Buck, watching these guys get over the bags, be able to change direction and show some explosiveness is big.
Yeah, you want to see their balance and body control. So much of what we think about with running backs is their straight line speed, their explosiveness, their quickness, but really it's their balance, body control, their ability to make quick cuts in the hole because you're always running in traffic. We've seen these top backs, for instance, a Trent Richardson, who never necessarily gets started during his pro career because he always seems to fall on his feet when he's in traffic. Well, I want to see how do they make these cuts? How do they go through the bags? Can they go through them clean? Can they have the balance and body control to sequence their moves? Very important to find these running backs because most teams don't have the ability to generate these huge holes. Your running back needs to be creative with the ball in his hands.
We talk about stop-start quickness, and that's something you can see here at this drill. You're going to see a coach tell them which way to go, and that's where you're going to see that explosiveness and are they fluid in that movement. You can see that there in the bag drill. Buck, that's not those are two good things we want to see. Now, maybe a little bit overrated aspect, the stopwatch on the running back.
Yeah, the stopwatch. The 40 time is the most overrated aspect of the running back position because, in essence, how many times do we see these big runs? Most of the time, the guy that leads the league in explosive plays or runs of over 40 yards, you're talking about 4 or 5 a year. So I don't necessarily need to see a guy clock a 4 time. And in fact, most of the times, guys that run fast have a tough time slowing down, and they don't have the ability to do what we like them to see on backs. They can't stop, they can't start, they can't regenerate their quickness after they decelerate. Throw out the 40 times, spend more time looking at their shuttle drills and their ability to easily go through the bags.
One thing that's difficult to judge here at the combine for the running back position is vision. We don't have offensive linemen set up out here. That's the most important factor for a running back. I don't care how big and how fast you are. You're running to the back of your lineman. It does me no good. So vision's something you're not going to see here in Indianapolis. You got to go back to the game tape. All right, let's go to the wide receiver position now, Buck. Now the stopwatch, maybe not as important for the running back position, does hold some merit at the wide receiver.
It does hold some merit at the wide receiver position because the 40 time is significant. It gives me an opportunity to know if this guy can be a true vertical threat. I understand that there are guys that have had success in the league running 4.6s and 4.7s.
Allen Robinson, a recent one.
Everyone likes to throw out Anquan Bolden. Allen Robinson is a guy. But really, the bulk of the receivers in the league run in that 4.4 to 4.5 range. You need to be able to separate. You need to be able to be a guy that can not only run the intermediate routes, but has the ability to affect the game as a vertical receiver. The 40 time gives me an indication if you can be a true deep threat on the outside.
Everybody's looking. We always say in the draft meetings, we need somebody to take the top off the defense. This is where you try and find that guy at the combine, and you'll get a chance to see who some of these really fast receivers are. We're going to get into one of those a little bit later on in the show here, Buck. Then another aspect, I always like to see the vertical for these wide receivers. We talk about playing tall ball down the field. You get in the red zone. Can you elevate over the defense? Can you high point the football? The vertical is a big aspect of that. I remember Mike Evans here. You looked at his size, his reach, plus his vertical. He can play above the head of opponents, and that's a big aspect of what you're looking for, and especially in a red zone target.
You know, a couple different aspects or a couple of different reasons why the vertical is so important. Not only in the big ball, being able to play as a threat down in the red zone, being able to leap and win some of those 50-50 balls. There's some guys in this class that can do it. Josh Dotson, for me, at TCU is one of the best at being able to do it. But also, there's a direct correlation between vertical jumps and 40 times.
Yep.
Typically, guys that run in that 4.4 range on the vertical, they're going to be at 35 or higher. And I want to make sure that everything correlates. The 40, the vertical, even the broad jump. I should have guys in that 10-foot range, 10-5 range. All of those things should line up. This is a test of your athleticism, I should be able to see you check off some of the measurables to make sure that you're a good enough athlete to play the position I want you to play.
All right, Buck, I'm not a thief, so I'm not going to steal from you right here because this was your contribution to this segment. But I so agree with it, and I so want to hijack it from you because I've been saying this for years. The most overrated drills for wide receivers is what?
The gauntlet drill. The gauntlet drill.
Thank
Watching
you.
a guy run down the line, have 7 guys throw passes to him as he changes from one side to the other. He's set up to fail. It's a rhythmic thing. It's really because if you miss one, if you're slightly off, and the quarterback can throw you off. He throws it behind you. It affects the difference.
He throws early, the next guy throws late. You're all messed up.
Some guys are trying to throw fastballs. Other
need to
guys
catch
are
one
chain.
football.
That's it. Catch the ball. I want to see you catch. That's not the best drill. I want to see how you catch the ball when you're running routes. I want to see if you can track it coming back to the quarterback. The deep ball drill, to me, is probably a more important drill to look at. How can they track the ball?
Yeah.
Can you track it down the field? Can you follow it? Did you play baseball in the background so it's easy, or do you struggle in that vein? The gauntlet drill throughout, look at some of the other drills to see if they can be natural pass catchers at the next level.
All right, we're not going to go through every position on the football field, but let's get one more on offense here. Let's go to the offensive line, just kind of in general, all the way across the line. The stopwatch does matter, but it's not the 40-yard dash.
No, not the 40-yard dash for the offensive lineman. How fast do they run to 10 times?
Yep.
More times than not, we're not going to ask our guy to run beyond the second level of the defense. So if I'm looking at offensive linemen, how quick are they within the box? How quickly can they get around the corner on pull plays? I need that short area quickness and burst. That's what I'm looking at. Look, it's tough. Look at the guys, big bodies, bad bodies sometimes, laboring 40 yards. The only thing that matters to the scouts in the stand, how fast do they run to 40 time? Not the 40 time. How fast do they run to 10 split as part of their 40 time? That determines whether they're quick enough to get on the edges.
No question. All right, to me, another drill, the kick slide drill. I always like seeing this one. Just how quick can you get out of your stance as a tackle, and how much ground can you eat up? They're going to line up a rusher wide with a cone, and I don't care. Some of these guys are going to cheat the drill. They're going to try and get a jump on you. But you can see how a guy can kick out to cover up speed, because one of the things in National Football League, you're going to see at the tackle position some fastballs coming off the edge.
All the time.
You got to be able to get out there and cover up speed. Now, this is a mirror drill that we're watching right here, not the kick slide drill. This is another one. By the way, Richie Incognito tore his ACL on this drill that you're watching right here, the mirror drill.
He did.
Going back and forth violently, eventually his leg gave out. But there's another drill, the kick slide drill, where you're going to see him take a set, and you're going to see them try and cut off speed rushers. A good way to look at their footwork.
Good way to look at it. The kick slide drill, because you're trying to make sure that your guy is fast enough to retreat, to get square on a pass rusher. This drill, the mirror drill, it does give you an opportunity to see their balance, their body control, their ability to work laterally. All of those things come into the evaluation when we're looking at those offensive linemen.
All right, overrated, Buck. What's an overrated aspect here of the offensive line work?
Yeah, I know the muscle heads, the meat heads, they love the bench press. No relevance to National Football League, the way you play. Even though we see guys pump up a lot of weight, they do 29, 30, 35, 40 reps on the bench press. It's the functional strength that matters. That doesn't matter as much. So even though I would like to see guys have a decent number, to me, I discount that. I spend more of my time looking at the footwork, how quickly they run the 10-yard time, as opposed to the bench press.
Can you bend? Can you drop your weight? Because I don't care how strong you are upper body. If you can't sink your weight, you're not going to be able to anchor anybody. To me, it's a good indication just of how hard they've worked in college. Maybe it's a work ethic thing.
Did they make it to the weight room?
Did they actually show up to work out?
Did they do that?
Get something out of that. But I think it is a little bit overrated. I remember, I want to say Michael Ruse bench pressing maybe 18, 19 times. And in the draft room, we kind of had the discussion. And we're like, well, I didn't see any issues of him having strength issues on tape. We know he can move. He's athletic. He's balanced. Don't worry about it. He turned out to be a fine player.
You know, and that comment that you make really speaks to the entire thing at the combine when it comes to the athletic testing. Does what you see on the turf match up to what you saw on film?
Yeah.
And if it matches up, then you check the boxes, you're able to move on in the evaluation. If something comes out here that wasn't on what you saw on tape or in your notes, then you got to go back and investigate it, make sure you get the player right. Because at the end of the day, we just want to get the player right by drafting.
Yeah, we use that phrase, checking off every box throughout the process. You want what you see on tape, you want it to match out here on the field. All right, let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Edge rushers, Bucky. When we look at edge rushers, there's a lot of different drills, a lot of different movement things we can focus in on. But if we're going to narrow it just down to two, what's one you want to see?
My favorite is the bend and burst drill. Watching guys come off the edge, watching them, the first step quickness, the snap count anticipation, then their balance and body control when they turn the corner. So much of being a good pass rusher is not the get off, it's the ability to get home and get them down.
Finish.
Do you have the finish? Do you have the close? Do you have the ability to make those things happen? That's what I want to see, because it's critical to knock the quarterback down in the National Football League, I need to make sure that those guys have the ability to do that.
You're seeing a little punch drill here. On this drill, when you're watching at home, by the way, turn the volume up on some of these D-line drills where they have the bags and just listen. See who has explosive hands. We're going to watch their feet, but you want to listen to their hands. It'll sound like a car bomb goes off with some of these guys. They're so powerful with their upper body strength and just how quick and violent their hands can be. That's something you can listen to as well as watch. Buck, I'm going to go back to the vertical. To me, that's a measure of explosiveness for an edge rusher. That coincides with their get-off, with that explosive burst you need, not only to get off the line of scrimmage, but at the top of your rush. You want to widen somebody out. You want to bull rush them. Having that vertical, that's that explosiveness, being able to really crank your hips and get going. To me, that is a good indicator for a pass rusher, the vertical jump.
Great indicator. It speaks to the overall explosiveness. It speaks to their ability to engage in people because it all comes from the same place. Hips, glutes, lower abs, your core engagement, all of those things you can determine in the vertical jump. I agree with you. The vertical jump is a great indicator of someone's athleticism and their overall explosiveness.
All right, a little bit overrated, maybe the 40 time for these edge rushers?
Yeah, the 40 time, because how often are we going to ask the edge rusher to run 40 yards down the field? It looks good on the paper. It's really great to be able to say, oh, such and such is a 4.4 40 guy. But really, once again, it comes down just like the offensive lineman. 10-yard split time. Mm-hmm. How quickly do they get off? Do they have first step quickness? Do they have the balance and body control to turn the corner? The guys who are the scariest to me to block in the NFL are the ones who have the burst off the snap. Those are the guys that you kind of have to find a way to help your offensive tackle because they can't do it all by themselves.
Yeah, build up speed. We use that term for wide receivers. That can be okay. That's all right. You build up speed down the field. As a pass rusher, you don't have time to build up your speed. You have to be right sudden, quick, explosive. That's what you're looking for, not so much the 40 time. All right, let's go to the back end. We'll skip through the linebackers, although there are a lot of good linebackers to keep an eye on. We're going to get to a couple of them here in just a minute. But maybe for the corners, Buck, some things we're looking to see from them.
Backpedal. Most important thing I want to see from cornerbacks is do they have the ability to make smooth and fluid back pedals? Can they get in and out? Can they do the turns and transitions? Can they go from backwards to forwards and backwards again? Can they catch the ball? All of it starts with your back pedal. So many guys are one-dimensional, meaning they can only play press. They can only play from off. In college now, they're teaching so much bail technique. Mm-hmm. I need to be able to see guys back pedal, break and drive, close, play the way the game has always been played because you have to have versatile skill sets on the back end. This drill allows me to see if you're ready to play zone and man coverage.
Real quick, Buck, before I move on to my thing that I'm maybe looking for, let's explain to people what maybe they don't know what a bail technique is. So you're lining up at the line of scrimmage in a press look, but you're getting out of there. Explain how that works.
Yeah, bail technique, you line up in a press look, and before the snap, you kind of run out or walk out. You execute a crossover run to run away from it. You're still looking at the wide receiver and the quarterback. You have vision. Typically, you do it in zone coverage. What it does and what coaches will tell me is, oh, it already puts them in the transition phase because they're going to have to turn and run at some point. We like to do it. It allows us to do the skies. But old school coaches, they want to see you back pedal.
They want to see you carry your back pedal. How far can you carry it?
How long can you carry it? When do you have to turn? Do you have the ability to turn and run and stay on top of the receiver? To me, those things are more important than seeing some of the other stuff that DBs are asked to do.
We also see with these corners, you talk about bail technique, we also see a lot of quarters coverage where their butts to the sideline, their eyes are on the quarterback, but they don't do a lot of backpedaling. So that's one thing we're definitely looking forward to seeing from these corners out here, Bucky. And then I come back to the 40 time. We can say it's not important for this position or that position. The position where it is most crucial is the corner position. You can see a guy's stock plummet, and you can see a guy's stock rise a little bit based on how they do in this 40 time. Because if I've got a 4.6 receiver, Buck, and the corner is next to him, he's running 4.6 too, right? You're both running the same speed. He's got to cover you. But if you've got a wide receiver that's running 4.3 and you've got a corner that's running 4.6, Houston, we have a problem.
You absolutely have a problem. The speed that we see at the wide receiver position is tremendous. Guys that can take the top off the defense. You need to be able to have defensive backs that can run. I would say the Mendoza line for me is 4.55 for my cornerbacks. I need them to be faster than 4.55 because if not, then you have to cover them up. They don't have the ability to stay with guys on vertical routes. And your defensive backs should be the best athletes on the team. They're the only guys that are asked to go backwards before they go forwards in football. These guys need to be remarkable athletes. The 40 time gives me an indication of how fast and explosive they are. Do they have the recovery speed that we desire in our corners?
All right, one thing we haven't talked about yet with any of these positions is the Wonderlic score. And I can make a case at the Wonderlic score, which is an intelligence test that, by the way, I have my wife take it. and I told her I would take it as well. She took it. She scored so high, there was no chance I was taking that thing because there's no way I'm going to get as high a score as she is. I think she's smarter than me. I don't want a number to guarantee it.
We don't want to verify it.
We don't want to verify that. So I never took the Wonderlic test. But for this position, for the corner position, the Wonderlic score, don't care.
No, we don't care. There are a lot of different ways that people go about with their cornerbacks. They don't ask them to have a lot of responsibility because the athletic demands of the position require them to be in tune. So I don't want to slow them down with mental clutter. So when it comes to the Wonderlic, yes, we would like to have smart players all around. But the position can be dumbed down in a way where you can get guys who are outstanding athletes without a lot of intelligence to play well. Smart players typically play better than not. But it doesn't mean that you have to be a guy that gets a 30 on the Wonderlic to be able to be successful.
I've always said that you look at the character of your football team and the intelligence of your football team in the middle of the field. Yeah. As we get closer to the sidelines on both sides of the ball, a little more forgiving in both areas.
Yeah, more forgiving. I need better athletes on the perimeter more so than smart guys.
All right, let's move on now to 5 big-time players, Buck. 5 big-time players we're looking forward to watch work out on this football field. And let's start with the big guy, an offensive lineman who I believe is the best football player in this entire draft class. I believe you have him up there in the top 3 or 4 of your list as well.
Larry Tunsil, Ole Miss. Larry Tunsil is a freakish athlete, a dancing bear on the perimeter. I love his body control, his balance, his footwork. You talk about the kick slide drill that we want to see guys execute. I think he's going to kill it when he does that. His ability to mirror elite pass rushers off the edge. I watched him against Texas A&M against Myles Jarrett, and he snuffed him out, did a great job of controlling him at the line of scrimmage. He is a guy that I think you can use in space. He's a natural pass protector. You're thinking about having a franchise guy, you have a franchise quarterback. This is a guy that I want on the blind side.
Yeah, he's somebody, we haven't seen it yet, but when you watch him kick slide and watch him cover up speed rushers, it is beautiful. It's a teaching tape, really. I mean, I tweeted out of one of his plays, and LaCharles Bentley, who works with a lot of offensive linemen in the National Football League, as well as guys coming into the draft, had even commented on it. That is a teaching tape with how he does it.
Yeah, teaching tape. I mean, just a dancing bear on the perimeter. You just don't see guys that are at that size, that have that ability, have the capacity to snuff out guys by themselves. We saw how important it was in the playoffs when you have Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware wrecking shop off the edges. You better have pass protectors that have the balance and body control and the mirror skills to take care of those guys.
All right, let's go to the defensive lineman here. Out of Ohio State, Joey Bosa, a name I think most fans out there are familiar with. Somebody's probably a sure bet to go in the top 5. Out here to work out, Bucky, what do you expect to see from Joey Bosa?
I think he's going to be a nice performer. I think he's a better athlete than most people anticipate. Is he as explosive as they say the Von Miller and those types? I don't think so. He doesn't play to that on tape. But I do believe he's a very, very good athlete. His ability to move inside and outside, his ability to run down the line. We'll see him in drills with the balance and body control. Very, very impressive prospect, worthy of being in the top 5. He just needs to validate it with a solid performance here.
I think he'll put on a good show out here, Bucky. Big fan. But a guy that I think could end up being the star of the week. Your number 1 player, right? Jalen Ramsey out of Florida State, played corner, has played safety. I make the case he's the best at both positions in this draft class, and I believe he's your number 1 player.
He is my number 1 player. He's a guy that I think is a true football player, meaning that it's all about ball with Jalen Ramsey. Instincts, awareness, football IQ, competitiveness, then the athleticism. He is exactly what you look for in a top 5 prospect, a blue prospect, someone that's unique. And talking to him a couple days before he came out, he thinks that he's going to blow up the combine. I asked him at his weight. He's 204 pounds. He thinks he's going to run in the 4.4s, if not lower. And look, he was the long jump champion in the 2015 ACC Track and Field Championships. He's going to post a very, very impressive vertical and broad jump. If he does that, the conversation continues about him possibly being the number 1 player in the draft.
Yeah, I think he's got a legitimate shot to go to the Tennessee Titans. Next is Ezekiel Elliott, the running back, who I think is head and shoulders over every other running back in this draft class. Out of Ohio State, checked in at 225 pounds, just a tiny bit under 6 feet. He's got ideal size. He can do everything: run, catch, run with power, run with speed. I think he'll put on a show here in his workout.
Yeah, he's going to put on a show, and I think the thing that guys will be impressed with the most, his ability to catch the ball out the backfield. Natural pass catcher, strong hands, can run all the routes on the route tree. Even though he wasn't asked to do that at Ohio State, if he shows people that he can catch the ball really well and run routes, it's easy to envision him being a 3-down back because you've already talked about his ability to run the ball. And then in pass protection, he's solid. Catching is the only thing he needs to do to check off all the boxes in terms of being a premier running back at the position.
All right, at the cafeteria at NFL Network, I believe you're a yogurt guy.
Yeah,
right?
I like yogurt.
You're a guy. Okay, so give me a vertical, and I'll go higher or lower, maybe for a yogurt. What do you think? Ezekiel Elliott's vertical at the end of the day will be?
Let's go 35.5.
I'm going to go over, and I like a little bit of fruit on top of my yogurt. Bucky. All right, can you take care of that for me?
Oh, you must have some insider trade.
I have no information. That's what I'm going with. All right, we'll see. So was it 35.5?
35.5. So that means
somebody write that down. TD's back in the studio.
Well, if this is the Price is Right, this is the Price is Right, and I go 35.5. You have to put out a number because if it falls between my 35.5,
oh, that's not how this works.
It has to be. It's like
so I can't go over
$1.
So you did 35.5? Oh, I'll do 36.
Oh man, you really made made it small. That's fine.
That's easy.
I should have went for $1. I should have went for $1. Then I would have been okay.
No, I got 36. I got this one wrapped up. All right. The quarterback we're looking forward to watch here. We've got Jared Goff from Cal, who's a great player. We kind of go back and forth on who the top guy is. I like Carson Wentz from North Dakota State as my top guy, and I'm looking forward to watching him out here working out.
The great thing about this, the top 7 quarterbacks are all working out on the turf.
Yep.
So we get an opportunity to examine the arm talent, the arm strength, the velocity, the pace of the ball, how it jumps out of their hands. Carson Wentz has an opportunity to continue to ride the momentum coming out of the Senior Bowl, where a lot of people fell in love with him. He is a big, impressive athlete. I expect him to test well in the athletic drills, how well he throws. If his ball looks different than, say, the Christian Hackenberg, the Cardale Jones, guys that have strong arms, it just kind of continues to perpetuate the thing of this guy being a franchise quarterback ready to play in the National Football League.
I'm glad you mentioned some of those quarterbacks because one of them we're going to get to here in just a second. And we're talking about now, let's transition to talking about our breakout players. So maybe some guys that have a chance to really, really up their stock. Those were premier players we just went over. Now we've got some guys that I think have a chance to really track some momentum going into the week here. And one of them at the top of our list here is a defensive lineman from Illinois who's got rare athletic ability.
Jahad Ward, he's a guy that when we showed up at the Senior Bowl, you're like, man, who is the guy with the orange helmet making all the plays? Big body, nice frame, very athletic for his side. A guy that is really coming on. And what I liked about him during the week of the Senior Bowl was he got better and better with each rep. He understands how to kind of use his athleticism to his advantage. Doesn't consistently get home, but I believe with a good coach, I think he has an opportunity to be a guy that's a high flyer. If he puts together a strong performance out here on the turf, I think you hear the drumbeat from the coaches. This is the guy that I want to work with as my developmental prospect.
Oh, yeah, because you've got, as a coach, a chance to get a guy with just an unbelievable skill set. I think he's going to test really, really well. When you watch him on tape, you see that get off, you see that burst. He can bend. He's really athletic. Finishing has been an issue. You want to see a little bit more production from him. That hasn't come yet. But as a coach, it's all there for you to be able to work with and develop this football player. In
the league, after the first-round pick, at all draft picks, it's a developmental league. Yep. How quickly can we develop them to get them to be even beyond what our expectations were when we drafted him? Ward is a guy that has outstanding athletic attributes. We want to see if we can kind of work with those things and make him be a better player where his playing ability matches his athletic talent.
Top Gun, Buck. You're a Top Gun guy?
I am a Top Gun guy. I'm Maverick.
You're Ice. I'm Iceman. I'm okay with that. Iceman, boy, has not aged well. Has not aged well.
Maverick just kind of goes for it.
Yeah, we no volleyball here in Indianapolis. But look, I feel the need
for speed.
The need for speed. Okay, that's going to get us to our next guy, Will Fuller from Notre Dame.
Man, Will Fuller is a guy that can take the top off the defense, and we always talk about that term. What does it mean? It means he can run past any defensive back that you put out there without a problem. Just looking at tape before I came down for us to tape the podcast, that play you talk about, him running past Adoree Jackson. Adoree Jackson is a world-class athlete. He ran past Adoree Jackson like he was standing still. Will Fuller's speed and explosiveness, his ability to be a legitimate deep threat, there's a value to that. He is a hot commodity. If he catches the ball well, that conversation, because I don't know if there's a unanimous choice as the number one receiver in this draft. I'm not saying that he's that, but I do believe he certainly can put himself in the conversation as a first-round talent, as a deep ball specialist. When you look at the careers of a Deshaun Jackson, someone who's a proven threat, even a Ted Ginn Jr., who kind of emerged as a Pro Bowl caliber talent, Will Fuller offers that to a team. I just need to see him catch the ball consistently.
I think he's a little more loose as an athlete than Ted Ginn, but that's exactly the same effect he can have. He can do his damage in 2 or 3 plays, get you some big chunk yardage, and he's going to be well worth the value. I have him kind of as an early second-round pick. Would not surprise me in the least if he ended up vaulting his way all the way to the first round.
29 touchdowns the last 2 years. Yeah. That is crazy production, and he did it in an offense that's not necessarily a gimmicky, tricky offense. He blows past people. all day, every day. Tremendous talent.
All right, we talked about the speed with Will Fuller. Now I'm anxious to see the speed of the next player here in William Jackson, the corner from Houston, because I really like what I see on tape. A really tough physical player with great ball skills. If he can run a decent time here, we talked about that 4.55 being that magical number. If he can get in that 4.52, maybe even get in that 4.49 area, I think he's got a chance to really kind of vault himself up in the mix.
This is a guy, had a chance to watch him against Florida State at the Chick-fil-A Bowl. He's a guy that came up with 2 interceptions there. He has a knack for reading routes, does a great job in coverage. I think he's better of a zone corner, but we need to see the 40 time because that's the only issue that you really can have. He'll come up, he's a willing tackler, great ball skills. I like the back pedal. It's just the long speed. Because imagine, if I got a Will Jackson having to deal with a Will Fuller,
yeah, Will on Will.
I need to make sure that
Will
he
can cover
that
Will.
guy. Yeah, so William Jackson has an opportunity to help himself because some of the other guys that are behind, who we talk about, Jalen Ramsey and Vernon Hargraves, those guys aren't accomplished in terms of the ball skills.
Yep.
He has a chance to put himself in the conversation as a guy that's worthy of being a first-round pick.
Reminds me of Bashad Breeland, who I like coming out of Clemson, who is a tall, long corner, has done a nice job with the Washington Redskins early on in his career there. Now we talk about speed at the receiver position, maybe question with the corner. We go to a linebacker. Speed is not an issue for Deion Jones at LSU.
No, Deion Jones, look, he showed up. He's spectacular talent, showed up at the Senior Bowl. You can see him run around. You can see the run and chase. And the way the game is evolving, you need to have these linebackers that are almost like nickel safeties,
Telvin Smith,
hybrid players.
Dayon Buchanan.
And yesteryear, you couldn't play with those guys because they would have to take on the blocks. But teams aren't running the ball with that kind of physicality and toughness and commitment. Being able to put a guy like this on the field where he can cover tight ends, where he can run and chase and shoot through the backside gap to make plays in the backfield, interesting prospect. That speed is going to catch someone's attention.
All right, we've got yogurt in play. Now let's go granola bar.
A granola bar and
granola
yogurt.
bar, Deion
sugar.
Jones, and I'll put the number on it. I'm gonna put it out there on him. Deion Jones. I'm gonna say 4.50. For a linebacker.
You taking the over or the under?
I'm saying 4.50. You got to tell me if you think he's going to be faster or slower.
I'm gonna go over 4.51.
So you did the same thing to me.
So you went for $1. I went for $2.
Oh, that's fine.
So now I get
Deion,
everything.
I have so much confidence in you, man. I'm not even worried about this thing. He's going to get in the 4.4s. So we got granola. Okay, I feel good. I like yogurt. I like granola.
Yeah, I mean that's a nice breakfast for you if you do it.
It's going to happen. All right, let's get to our last one here. We mentioned there was a quarterback we wanted to discuss and how people are going to match up next to each other. I'll go on record right now, before they even take the field, that once the quarterback throwing session is over, the name that we'll all be talking about, just in terms of how he let the football fly out of his hand, is this man right here, Cardale Jones from Ohio State.
I mean, I believe you. I'm with you. You know, it's funny. A year ago, we were talking about this guy possibly being the third quarterback off the board.
I think he would have been.
And he probably should have been based on what the small sample size showed. This year, starts, gets benched, but even in looking at his starts, yes, he has some miscues. The talent is there.
Yeah.
The talent is there. The fact that he led them to the national title the way that he did, I still believe that there are people in the stands that will watch him and say, I can develop this guy. This is the perfect guy to develop as a second or third round pick. His arm strength is going to be one of the best, if not the best, in the group. And he's going to rival some of the notable names in terms of just the way it looks coming out of his hand. I believe Cardale Jones, and I got another one. I don't have B-roll for it. Christian Hackenberg.
Yeah, that's another one.
The two names that we'll talk about, just from a physical standpoint, the ball is going to jump out of the hand. But with Hackenberg, his athleticism is going to surprise people. He's going to be a bigger, faster athlete than most people think. It won't be 4.5s, but he'll probably be in that 4.65, 4.7 range. The vertical and stuff is going to look good, and he's going to come out here looking like a Greek god. He is going to be the guy that all the old school quarterback coaches say, that's what my quarterback should look like.
Yeah, he's somebody that we've already heard the buzz, right, with Bill O'Brien there at Houston. They need a quarterback. Basically, they've gone on record and say they're going to address that position. Man, I heard some people say maybe the Houston Texans take Hackenberg in the first round. I believe they're picking 15 or
22.
22, there you go. 22.
You know, the funny thing about
that coffee's a little rich.
The funny thing about that is we'll have this debate on a later podcast. When do you take a player that you really like?
Yeah.
Do you take a player that you like regardless of what the outside guys will say because you really like him, or do you try and get tricky and cute and manipulate the draft board to get him at the quote-unquote right value? Hackenberg will kind of be the litmus test for Bill O'Brien and his staff, because what will also happen if Hackenberg gets past Bill O'Brien at 22, does that send a red flag to all the other teams around the league?
I think if they pass him there, he's going to fall right to him in the second round.
Right. If your old coach won't take you, What is the issue?
Pete Carroll, or no, it was who was with Matt Leinart? It was Chow was fighting for him.
Yes.
Was there, but it was always when Pete Carroll first got to Seattle. It was kind of okay, is he gonna go in? Was it Matt Barkley? It was other quarterbacks.
It was also
they've had.
who's the safety?
Oh, Taylor Mays. They ended up taking Earl Thomas over Taylor Mays.
And so you kind of wonder, man, this guy knows everything about him. Bill O'Brien recruited him out of high school, knows about him, had him in his first year, understood what the challenges were in dealing with a freshman quarterback, had success. If he doesn't like him as high as anybody else, you have to kind of worry about that. But I think he will be a guy that generates a lot of conversation coming out the combine.
It's going to be fun. You're going to want to watch the quarterbacks throw here. Bucky mentioned all the top guys are throwing. You're going to make sure you want to tune in because you're going to see some wow arm talent, especially from those two guys, Cardale Jones, Christian Hackenberg. Not to mention we still have Paxton Lynch, who has got a huge arm from Memphis. He's going to let it rip. We already mentioned about Goff, and we got Wentz from North Dakota State. We've got Connor Cook from Michigan State. They're all going to be on display.
Like everyone is going to be there. The interesting thing is looking at the names and where that line breaks up in terms of the first group and the second group and which guys are in there. Do you have the strong group? Because Hackenberg and Goff will be in the same thing. Where does Cardale? Is Cardale in the first group or the second group? Because I would love to see him go toe-to-toe with Paxton Lynch and Carson Wentz to kind of see which guy has the strongest arm.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to watching that. But that's going to do it for us here. This is our Combine Show. Move the Sticks. We're moving on the road. We're taking this thing big time here from Lucas Oil Stadium here in Indianapolis. He's Bucky Brooks. I'm Daniel Jeremiah. Be sure to leave us some comments below what you think about what we just discussed, what you like, what you don't like. Hit us up and watch our podcast, YouTube, NFL.com/podcast. You can listen as well as listen on iTunes. We've got you covered. Lots of content as we march towards the 2016 NFL Draft.
Thanks for downloading Move the Sticks with Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks. For more, go to NFL.com/podcasts.